What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Elijah Ellis Show. I do promise that new interviews are coming soon shortly. Um, I've got an interview coming up with Will Spencer. He's coming on again for the second time. That's going to be awesome because a lot of things have changed both in his life and my life since our last episode together. And then I've got a very special interview coming up that I'm not going to share any details about at the moment. And then I'm going to be interviewing Charlie Haynes, a good friend of mine that has an incredible story. So be on the lookout for those interviews. And if you want a chance to ask any of my guests a question, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/Elijah Ellis Show, where you can get a chance to ask the guest a question and get so much more content like ad-free interviews, exclusive content, early access to the interviews, and more coming along as we continue to grow the podcast and everything. But today is a solo episode because I've got a new setup kind of behind me. And so I wanted to record something here. And I know it's been kind of dead on the podcast recently, which I wish it wasn't that way. But then again, some things have to take priority over the podcast. But we're working on coming out with new interviews, as I said previously. Um, we aren't putting out an interview every week just because that takes up a lot of time. You may not realize how much time actually goes into prepping for an interview, doing the interview, editing the interview, and then having to do that every week. That just takes up a lot of time and time that I don't have at the moment. But we're bringing more interviews, just not weekly for now. Maybe as the podcast grows and continues to grow, then we'll look back into doing weekly episodes. But today I wanted to discuss something that I've seen floating around a lot, and that is the idea of pushing your message instead of promoting the message that wants to be promoted. And so what I mean by that is there's this trend right now a lot with people being invited onto podcasts, for example, and instead of the podcast host says, "Hey, did you want to come on my podcast to discuss X and Y?" Not just, "Hey, do you want to come on my podcast to discuss, whatever." The podcast host always has an idea of what they want to push and what that episode's about, whether it's politics or the person's story or spiritual aspects of their life. The podcast host invites a person on to help facilitate and bring forth the message of that specific podcast episode. Now, if they want you to push your message, they will tell you. But the trend going around a lot is podcast hosts inviting guests on, and then when they say, "Hey, do you want to come on to tell your story or to talk about the, you know, deportation of so and so?" The person says yes, and then takes a turn, whether that's before the actual podcast interview or during it, and they don't really want to come onto your podcast to talk about whatever you want to talk about and, pushing this certain message and talking about this new politic thing. Instead, they want to come onto your podcast to push their message and get your audience to know about their message. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. And they do it in two phases. They'll either do it before the interview and they'll give you a heads up in a way of, "Hey, check this out so we can, skip surface level and dive deep into my message and everything and this, propaganda or whatever it may be that I'm pushing." Or they take a turn in the interview and you're just left with, "Oh, shoot, they took a turn and started talking about things that I didn't want to talk about, and now this and this and this, and I don't know what I'm going to do." And that trend has seemed to go around a lot. And I think one reason why it's been going around a lot is because people say that anyone can start a podcast, and in a way, anyone can start a podcast. You can literally just grab your phone and, pull up the camera and just record like you would a video of your child taking his first steps. And I think when people start a podcast with the idea that anyone can start a podcast, so many people are starting podcasts that they don't have a specific reason or idea of starting this podcast. They are just starting it because they can. And podcasts have become so popular and influential that people, if they push their message via a podcast, it gets heard. And most likely, people will agree with that specific message. That is why a lot of brands and companies advertise via podcasts now, because they have become so influential. You're not going to listen to 3 hours or 2 hours or 1.5 hours of Ali Bestucky unless you agree with her. And therefore, you listen to her because you trust her and you believe that anything she pushes will be good because you believe in the same things she believes in and agree with her. So, therefore, if this person advertises this company or this product, you have faith in that person and therefore believe that that product or company is going to be a good choice for you. And so I think that has happened a lot with a lot of people, is if you take a podcast and you take its audience and the people that trust this person and believe that what I hear from this person is going to be good and therefore, I should believe it or, purchase this product. And people are taking that and taking it for advantage and saying, there's this guy that runs a podcast, invited me on for X reason, but he has a follower. He has followers that trust him. And so I'm going to start pushing my agenda and I'm going to say things about my things. And therefore, oh, it was on the podcast. Therefore, there must be something good about that. And so, yes, you can disagree with people, but I believe that is why this trend has come about, is because people trust podcasts. People listen to podcasts for numerous hours a day. They are one of the most listened to things in the world. And so, yeah, that's all I have for you today. Just some quick thoughts. Be sure to be on the lookout for the interviews coming soon. They're going to be absolutely great. I'm super excited for them. But as I said in the beginning, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/Elijah Ellis Show, where you can become a member for as low as $5 a month and receive perks like getting to ask a question for the guest and getting exclusive ad-free interviews, early access to interviews, just more exclusive content coming as we grow that platform. So head on over there, patreon.com/Elijah Ellis Show, and I'll see you on the inside.